I'd like to call the meeting to order and adopt the agenda for this evening's meeting.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Keith.
I'll second that.
Mary seconds. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye. All opposed?
Aye.
I'm opposed.
Brad is opposed. Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. The minutes of the March 7th, 2022 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to read them over? Any suggestions or corrections? What?
I move that we adopt the minutes as written.
I'll second.
Erica with a second. Keith with a motion. We have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes of the March 7th meeting. Is there any discussion? Ed? You're muted.
I'll second it.
Oh, thank you, Ed. Is there any discussion regarding the minutes? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the meeting format. We have the option to continue to stay remote or go back to in-person. It's something that we need to discuss and see what people would like to do while we're still able to do it per the open meeting laws in the state of Vermont. And does anyone have any thoughts on this or feelings? Erica.
Personally, I would prefer to stay remote, at least for the near term. I just feel like it hasn't been all that long since the mask mandate was lifted in the schools, and in my job, the mask mandate was lifted this week, and I feel like it will take a few weeks, and a new version of Omicron is now becoming prevalent that's more transmissible, and I would feel more comfortable staying on Zoom.
Thank you. Keith?
I'm amenable either way. I think this has worked pretty well, and I think it's given more an opportunity for community participation in the meeting, so I'm fine staying remote.
Becca?
I actually hold a different opinion than the other two. I feel like we should be going back to in-person because the schools are back in session that way. And I feel like it's a good discussion being together. And I just feel that way. And I feel like if we go back to school and everyone is there at school en masse and we're there together, I feel like we should be back together, meeting together.
Thank you. Dustin?
I kind of like the Zoom option, actually. I mean, I like meeting in person too, but I think it's just easier to access the meeting. You know, it's convenient for a lot of us not having to commute, and I think also for community to, they can zoom in, I think, more easily than, I think more people are more likely to see in their email an updated agenda and a link that they can join and view it that way than come in person.
Kevin?
I don't have strong feelings either way, but I believe that there's something lost by not gathering around the table. And the sooner that we could reestablish that relationship, if you will, I think it would be beneficial for us. Hybrid meetings are tough, but we've done them before and could very well do them again, I guess. But like I said, I'm not strong either way, but the loss of personal interaction is significant.
Brad?
I personally prefer in-person meetings, but I think in deference to a lot of communities, we have an option for, especially outsiders, to go in for the greater participation in meetings.
Oh, is that a step down?
Rebecca?
There you go. Yeah, I heard, I think someone said that it's easier rather than commuting back and forth. I think that we need to think about that. If it's hard for us to commute back and forth, then that says something about the whole, like, getting together as a merger, right, of the two districts. I think we should definitely be willing to commute back and forth for a meeting if we're thinking about combining two districts to commute back and forth. So I don't think that should be an obstacle for our meetings. And I think that there is something to be said about meeting in person and being able to make that commute back and forth. And I feel like we should also be able to have a hybrid where we meet in person and anyone who can join us can meet in person, and also have that option for people who can't join us to meet virtually with us.
Thank you. Sarah?
I'm a little bit indifferent, but I think our discussions are better when we're in person. So I would be open to us going back in person.
Okay. Anyone else want to give some input on that?
Mary had her hand up, Martha.
Oh yeah, Mary.
I'm with Rebecca. I mean, I'm not strongly with Rebecca. If we have to continue in Zoom, that's fine. But if it's safe enough for our kids, shouldn't it be safe enough for us? And also, I'm with Rebecca. If we're not willing to make the commute, even though it takes an extra 10 to 15 minutes, then what are we doing here? I feel like something is lost on Zoom. We get to say our piece, but I feel like the interactions between members, especially, we have some good discussions when we have a break. And I've enjoyed in the in-person getting to know the other members from the other districts that I don't know. And I feel like that doesn't really happen on Zoom.
Thank you. Mary Kate?
I can see pros and cons. I do feel respectful of people who are not comfortable meeting in person, and don't feel like if there are people who are uncomfortable that they should be required to come to a situation that they feel is unsafe, even if students are. One thought is maybe to wear masks at the meeting. The other piece I would just say with respect to the commute distance versus not merge. I mean, for some of us, it's just as inconvenient to go to Mount Abe, which is our school district, as it is to go to Vergennes, that isn't our school district. It's mostly convenient for the people who live in Bristol and Vergennes for these two meetings.
Excellent discussion. Anybody else?
Do we want to have a vote on this?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think maybe we should vote on it, or, I mean, because we do have another meeting coming up, so we would want to have something in place before that meeting. Kevin?
It sounds like you're going to have three options: all in person, all remote, or hybrid, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have to leave that hybrid available in case someone is not well, or I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is.
So
Kevin has his hand up, and so
I'll
does Eric.
I'll make a motion that we go back to a hybrid meeting as we were doing last fall, and give the opportunity for people to meet in person to maximize that interaction, but also have the fallback that they can join via Zoom.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor that we go back to the hybrid that we had previously, allowing meeting in person or by Zoom, and we have a second by Brad. Is there any discussion? Somebody had their hand up. Everybody moves around the screen, so it's hard to tell. Is there any discussion on that? Is that something that's possible at both schools? That's just a question I have, sort of my own discussion. It is, yeah. I'm getting a head shake. Okay. All those in favor of going to a hybrid meeting format, please say aye.
Aye.
So that Glory can see. Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. So we will be meeting both. I'm sure some things need to be set up for that, or am I right? It seems like the last time we had to kind of coordinate it with the people that were recording the meeting. Or is that right? No?
We're set up that way at Virgins. It's easy for us to accommodate that.
Okay. And I mean,
yeah, Neat TV has it pretty well orchestrated to be able to help with the hybrid and have that be of high quality. So,
Martha, I just wanted so that Glory has the right vote. Keith, it looks like you gave a thumbs up in opposition. Is that correct or not? Okay, thank you. So no oppositions.
The other thing is that when we are meeting in person, we did, Mary Kate and I did discuss about the health and safety. Do we want to follow what the schools are doing? Do we want to have our own, or is there any thoughts on that? Masks, no masks, 6 feet apart, 2 feet apart. No one really has.
I guess.
Yep.
I guess, I feel like what we're doing in schools is everybody has the option to wear a mask whenever they want, and we're mask friendly. And that seems like what's happening in the world around us. And, I had a head cold this week. I went to school, but I wore a mask all week. But last week I didn't wear a mask because I wasn't sick. So I feel like people at this point, people have to make their own decision and do what they're going to do to protect themselves and each other. But I don't know why we would institute lots of unnecessary parameters that we don't need to have.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything to say? Okay, I think that is a good plan. We are mask friendly. I like that. The next one is updates. Possible changes to Chapter 11. That's something that Tracy's going to talk about, and so I will turn it over to her.
Thank you. Nice to see you all this evening. Wanted to let you know that the comprehensive legislative rewrite of Chapter 11, which is the section of statute that pertains to school district mergers, has been read the third time in the House and passed. And when I checked last week, it was moving on to the Senate. I didn't check yesterday or today. But if passed, it will be the framework for the study that you are completing. The current bill is 172 pages long. I didn't link it for you, but I'm happy to share it if you're interested. I have skimmed it, not reviewed in depth, and feel like you're on track to meet those requirements, or to make a recommendation in a study that's consistent with what's outlined in the law, but also want to highlight that an important step in the process as you complete your articles of agreement is an AOE review and some feedback from them before you formally go forward. So I think you'll be fine, and we'll keep our eyes on it.
Thank you, Tracy. The waiting study update.
Yep, I just noticed I'm also going to give you a waiting study update. The final report of the waiting study was reviewed by the General Assembly, and Senate Ed and Senate Finance have drafted a bill on the pupil waiting study. The preliminary financials on the English language learner portion of that have been shared and look favorable to ANWSD and MAUSD based on FY20 models, and could impact tax rates by about 2.4 to 3.7 cents for each district. Of course, that's FY20 models, and things change between now and then. And that's one piece of a very complex and multifaceted package of change on education funding. So it's something we'll need to continue to keep our eyes on as the session continues.
Tracy, that data is different than what we've modeled for our data. So I'd be interested how you modeled that.
I did not. Oh, go ahead.
Well, the latest that's in Senate Finance, the figures that were released last week, have us losing about 1.7 million by our calculation over 5 years. So
for the total?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just talking about English language learners.
Yeah, that's a really small, we have a very small number. So they've changed that to like a hybrid, which there's a slight weighting for that, and then an overall block fund in association of 25 or 50,000, I forget which.
Right.
But it's not very impactful. That particular part of the changes, it's the overall weights, especially at the middle and high school.
So perhaps either superintendents or I can pull those current models and share them at the next meeting.
Right. Brad James is not modeling right now this current iteration, but he did say he would model whatever comes out of the Senate Finance and gets moved over to the House. So meanwhile, we're creating our own estimates.
Okay.
Can't rely, there's nothing to look at right now.
Okay.
Thank you, Tracy. District numbers and articles.
Oh, just wanted to close the loop on the affirmation of the identification of individual school districts. We talked about that the last time we were together, and they are updated in the articles based on the information from each school district, and they were substantially the same. We took the T out, Kevin, and added some zeros, but the core numbers are all the same.
Okay, thank you. Communication through board committees. This is on here because we were sort of getting the information from the communication key points out to the community, and that hasn't been happening on Front Porch Forum everywhere. So Mary Kate and I talked about it, and we are going to approach the boards to see if their community relations or communication committee would be willing to post our updates. Anything to add to that, Mary Kate?
I think for MAUSD, they may, somebody from their board approached us with that idea.
Kevin?
I guess I'm a little confused. We don't have a structure to do it ourselves.
We had some, in the beginning, we had some volunteers that were going to post it on Front Porch Forum, but and I just don't, unfortunately, posting on Front Porch Forum isn't the only way, but they only allow a limited number for some people. I don't really. Mary Kate, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, it was just falling through the cracks. Some people had volunteered to do that, and we were getting feedback from community members that it wasn't happening, at least in MAUSD, and so somebody from your board said, hey, we have this communications committee, we'd be happy to do that, would you like to do that? And so Martha and I talked and said, yeah, that makes sense, since they're pretty set up for that. I think they're also set up in terms of having an account, which makes it easier to post, at least on Front Porch Forum.
Erica?
So I feel partly responsible because I did volunteer at the beginning to share on Front Porch Forum, and I have been, I guess I misunderstood because I have been posting announcements for the meetings with links to everything, but I didn't realize that we were explicitly wanting to post the bulletins or what have you, the
communication key points.
Communication key points, thank you. And I did try at the beginning to set up an account that would allow me to post to relevant towns in Front Porch Forum, and there really was no way for me to do that. Aside from, I guess I could pay for it, but that didn't seem appropriate. So I just backed off and have been posting the announcements about the meetings, and I assumed that was enough, but I can certainly post more things. Anybody can post on Front Porch Forum.
Right. Thank you for what you have done. And it's not that you haven't done what you said you were going to do. It's just trying to reach everybody. I think we're trying to make sure everybody is informed. So many times we hear that we didn't know, or we didn't, trying to make people aware. And I have not reached out to the ANWSD board, but I will.
I was just wondering if somebody on those boards could do that.
Keith is the only one, so.
Somebody on MAUSD, I think Liz reached out to us, but does somebody on that board want to circle back on that? Thank you, Kevin.
I can do that.
Next, is there any more discussion on that? Thank you. The next in the communications is we received an email from the Starksboro Save Our Schools communication. Did everybody receive that that's on this committee? Everybody received it and was able to read it. I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware and has read that petition. And I believe that's the only communication. I've been out of town for 2 days, and so I have not been up to date on emails, and usually they come in at the last minute. So Mary Kay, is there any other communications to add to that we've received or that you've received?
No, I've received that from different people.
Yeah.
I think Erica also received that with an email from a person, and maybe some board members received specific emails. from various people, but they all relate to, all the emails I've seen relate to this petition.
Kevin?
I'm a little confused, maybe. This petition that's linked is a statement that there is a lot of sentiment in Starksboro about keeping their schools open. To the best of my knowledge, I believe there is a petition circulating or about to be circulated to request the select board to hold a vote as to separation.
Kevin, you're right. I just looked at that link, which was recently added. And yeah, there's another, there's the petition. In addition to this, there is a petition going around about leaving the MAUS district. And we got that, I think, just after Tracy and Martha and I met.
Dustin?
I was just going to add that, I did receive a letter, addressed specifically to me from, community people from Starksboro that, it was really a request to include in our merger articles language about towns being able to vote on the closure repurposes of their school. And it was also an invitation to come and see their school and see all the wonderful things that are happening in Starksboro. I'm not sure if anyone else received a similar letter. It was attached as a PDF addressed specifically to me.
That's what I received.
That, Dustin?
From Denny Casey?
Yes.
Yeah, I got it.
So the petition, there was an email on Monday. Oh, okay, and that's the one that is not included in here, so. Is there any other communication that anyone has received that they'd like to share with the committee? Okay, we're moving on to the preliminary approval of.
Can I ask a question? I don't know if this is the right time to, or I guess my question is this. If everybody keeps pulling out of a district, it's going to make a unification probably much easier because the last group standing will probably see a big, nice reason to unify. But my bigger question is, at what point, if the point is to provide the best education possible to all of the students in the communities at an affordable cost, do the very best we can with the dollars we have. As people splinter off, those schools are no longer going to have any option for any of the things that were sort of laid out from the plan that we saw around sister schools, and I don't know where the cost benefits are going to come, and so it's going to get more expensive in those towns to educate. And I just wonder, how do we have conversations at either the board level or at this level to figure out why our communities are splintering and starting a little versus coming together and having some real solid conversations about what is the most practical, logical move forward. This is one of them. It's not all of them, but we are trying to be part of a solution. And I don't know how or where does that next conversation happen? Does that happen at board meetings separate from this? I'm just throwing it out there just because I don't know. That's why I'm asking that question, but I'm feeling, as a larger community member of Addison County, when everybody starts pulling out, we're becoming divisive, and the more separate we are, the less community we are. And that's my question. I don't know where we go if our group is in charge of that, or who's in charge of. I would hope that the goal is to bring everybody together, not end up with everybody their own individual castles. That's just my question.
That's a great question. Brad, I don't have the answer to it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if any of us has the answer to it. I think, though, in the context of the merger study committee, the issue is not, really, whether or not to merge. I mean, I personally, as I've stated previously in these meetings, am undecided about the benefits or lack of benefits of a merger. I think what is dividing the community is not the issue of, whether a merger would provide greater opportunities, for our kids and better educations, but rather is focusing on the, lack of local control over their schools, and really the driving force, both behind Lincoln is and Lincoln's withdrawal efforts, which are further along than Starksborough's, and the driving force behind Starksborough's current petition is the fact that the 706 process, as it's laid out, it creates the potential for individual towns not having the ability to vote on whether or not to close or repurpose their schools. And that's nobody that I've ever talked to in Starksborough really likes the idea of moving out of MAUSD. That's not the optimal situation, but many people, in at least in my community, feel that that the town is being pushed into a defensive position, and they have to protect themselves, from the 706 process. We've talked in previous meetings about, several members on this committee, I think, have expressed, including myself, that a merger with articles of agreement that do not have an ironclad provision for individual towns to vote on their schools is just a non-starter. And so that's where it's coming from. Again, I really don't think that, if a merger is a good idea, by and large, most voters are gonna support that, especially if we as a committee or the two districts, make the case. And that's not the issue. The issue is more of one where there's a disconnect between what this committee is doing right now under the 706 mechanism and what at least many people thought was the original intention of having these meetings between the two districts, and that is to explore areas of collaboration. Instead, as I've said before in previous meetings, I don't think we're doing that. What we're doing is coming up with articles of agreement to put together a governance structure without really knowing how we're going to, what are we going to do? How are we going to collaborate? How is it going to save money? How is it going to increase opportunities for kids? We're not having those discussions. Instead, we're just sort of plowing forward with coming up with these articles of agreement. And so that's kind of where, as I see it, again, it's not about, the merits of merger or not, but rather the structure of this undertaking. Again, that's my view anyway.
Thank you, Brad. Erica has her hand up.
Thank you. I'm not sure that this is the right place on the agenda for this conversation. But I do have a very different perspective from Brad. And part of that is that I'm coming from Ferrisburg, and my experience of the Act 46 merger was different, I guess. And in that context, we went through a process where several proposals were put forward to our school board, some of which included closing the Ferrisburg Central School, which is where both of my kids went to school for most of their years as elementary students, and which I really love. And some of my favorite teachers ever are at that school. And I supported that plan if that was the plan that made the most sense for our district, because I feel like I live in a district, and that district had 3 elementary schools, and all of them were my communities. I didn't feel like there was something unique. I mean, each school is unique, but Vergennes also is a wonderful small elementary school with wonderful dedicated teachers and opportunities. And if my kids had still been at Ferrisburg, I would have been a little sad if they had to move to a new school, but ultimately that would have been fine with me, because I just feel like for me, the town is not the be all and end all of the educational unit. And so as a person in my district, watching what's happening in the Mount Abe district, it just seems like there's a very different culture in our different districts, that in those districts, the town school is vitally important in a way that maybe it's different here. And I don't know what to attribute it to, but I do feel like it's I don't know. I feel like it's going to make the merger process more difficult, because we're not all coming from the same place. We don't all have the same expectations of what, are the values, who do we value? Do we value just the people in our town, or do we choose to have a bigger district where we value all the children in that district, and, accept that maybe a school that combines 2 towns could be just as good as the school in my town? That's, I just wanted to say that, because I feel like some of the reactions I've been hearing from these letters have assumed that I would feel, that I would stand up and protest if my local public school was going to be closed. And I can honestly say that I would consider, if it was best for our whole district, if that school closed, then I would support that.
Thank you, Erica. Keith?
Yeah, I'm also coming at this from a different angle. First of all, I continue to be a little confused by why we're unsure why a 706B is here to study merge governance. And that is, in fact, what the purpose of the 706B is. I don't disagree that there could be other ways to collaborate and to study those collaborations, but it's pretty clear what our charge is here to start with. And so I think we're giving ourselves options here. I know that in the ANWSD, our voters have asked us to go out and seek out every option there is to solve a lot of these very real problems that are not going away just because we have strong feelings about our schools and our local schools. I feel very strongly about my local school as well, and I understand that everyone here does. But that does not change the very real nature of the problems we're trying to fix. And this, as someone mentioned before, this seems like a very viable option for that, whether we can make it work. And I'm gonna draw on a professional analogy that I've used at several board meetings already, but I edit books for a living, and oftentimes you cannot tell whether the book is going to be a great one until you have sat down and done the work and written it. I kind of feel the same way about sitting down here and writing these articles of agreement with all of you. It is a process of doing the work and trying to figure out, when we get to the end of it, if the work was worth it and whether it's worth putting out there to the public. And we'll decide that when we get there, but we have to go through the work first before we can know that. And it feels sometimes like there are attempts to derail that work here, and that's fine. Not everyone here has to agree that the work is worth putting out and putting forward. well, we're here. Let's do it. Let's get this work done. Let's put it to the community if we decide it's worth putting to the community, and let's let them decide through a vote whether it's something they want or not.
Thank you, Keith. Stephanie?
Hi, I just want to state that I think it's really important that we be careful about making generalizations about the feelings or thoughts of community members or districts as a whole. I think that there is a wide variety of feelings about merger and the size of communities and what community is. And I think I just encourage us all to be very open-minded and consider that often we hear the loudest people who do not always represent the entire community. So I'm just asking people to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Anyone else? It wasn't really on the agenda, but I think it was really healthy conversation. So sometimes we need that to hear all that. So we're gonna, oh, Dustin, sorry.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to say, I mean, I totally agree with Keith about, you know, let's do the work, and the taxpayers will decide when they vote. But I also, you know, the messages we're hearing from, you know, from the people who are communicating to us, and the pulse I get in the community is, you know, a lot of what Brad's saying is, I think there's a lot of people out there that, you know, probably believe that a merger could be very beneficial to the district. It could save costs, which is what, you know, the impetus for all of this is. But they're being very clear about what they want to see in the Articles of Agreement to protect themselves from, you know, from the process, and maintain what, you know, what they have in the Articles of Agreement in the current MAUSD articles. So I'd ask us just to really listen and consider. We don't have to go that way, but I would really consider the possibility of, if we did in our Articles of Agreement include what they're asking for with that language, that it could be very beneficial to us to have a merger, and that maintains the town's right to vote on their school being closed or repurposed. And there's lots of things in the Levinson report, which we took a good deal of time to go through, where with a more cost-effective mindset, we can find savings in other ways. And with a merger, we could, even without closing schools or repurposing schools, there's lots of ways we could save costs, expand programming and opportunities for students. I'd ask us to just give that possibility some serious consideration before we plow ahead and just say we're not going to include that in our Articles of Agreement because we don't have to.
Thank you, Dustin. Kevin?
Thank you.
Well, I've been biting my tongue for a while, but here I go. The Levinson report. It's I think most everybody on the board, I certainly was very pleasantly surprised and pleased at the insight and that he provided. But it's worrisome a little bit. There is a very vocal group, somebody brought that up, that are picking and choosing. Let's do this part of this, but not that part of that. But I think there's a lot in that report that not only Mount Abe should be paying attention to, but any future district if there was a merger. He strongly talks about a unified district. He's got a lot of rationale for that, even though there are people that are still naysaying that, but they want the carrot, which is to keep a town vote in, which he included in that discussion, saying that from a political point of view, it might carry the day otherwise than not. And I think given the Troy started the conversation with these towns that are willing to leave, given that mindset where and I've made this comment and I've been chastised for it, that brick and mortar is more important to them than cost or programming. So it's very, I think, through the discussion, and not all of it's written in his report, but through the discussion, he basically made the comment, and I'm distilling a little bit here, it's not worth the trouble to put up the fight to try to close schools and to provide the insurance that you're not going to try to do that, is the carrot that he's offering. He cited, he had a much more eloquent way to say it, but it is just not worth the distraction to a board that wants to move forward with other initiatives to deal with that. He indicated certain things, and you can see it in the Middlebury board. I'm not sure if it's happening in the MAUSD board yet, but it probably is, and I haven't seen it, or it will be, where, and I've seen it on other boards outside of the school arena, where when a controversial issue comes up, people run based on what their side of the controversy. And let's face it, the people that have their side of the controversy are the ones that are motivated, and they will eventually take over the board, and it'll become a moot issue after a lot of struggle. He indicated that the success in his experience, the success of closing a school before that happens to a board is like 1 in 10. So I think, and I am not in favor of a town vote. I believe it should be a district-wide vote, by the way. But I think we need to look at the politics of that, the levity of the politics of that, and understand where we want to go, and make a decision whether it's worth us to fight it or not, with all the other initiatives that we have an opportunity to institute. So I'm preaching today, and tomorrow I'm going to say I'm not for it, but I'm sitting on the fence with this one, because, like I said, personally, I'm not approving of it. I don't believe it. I live in a school district, I live in a school town that I believe there's distractors to my town school, given the disproportionate amount of funding and attention that some of these smaller schools are getting. So I'm not really too hepped about it, but all of a sudden, based on what Levinson said, particularly in his discussion and presentations, it's just not worth it. Just set it aside. It's not worth it. There's other workarounds you can do. And I'm just bringing that out, not because I believe it, because I think there's a certain amount of reality with that.
Thank you. I'm going to take a few more comments. Otherwise, yeah, but it's important. So, Dustin.
Kevin, I think you said that very well, because that's exactly how I'm feeling. I really think, however you feel about it, the reality of the situation, and I think Levinson's very wise in how he evaluated it. I think the wise thing to do here is to include the language they're asking for, keep Starksboro as part of the district. I think the merger has a much better chance of passing, and then you can get something done, as opposed to the merger not passing and all the benefits that we could realize from a merged district can't be realized until we're back to square one. So thank you for how you put it, Kevin.
Thank you, Dustin. I kind of want to add my 2 cents here, and I can, right? Because I'm a co-chair. I believe that's legal. That's okay. I look at this a little bit differently, and I look at it as a basketball game, and we are 2 points ahead of Mount Abe right now. We've already repurposed the school, and we've been through that. So part of me is saying, score a basket, we need to go into overtime. The other part of me is saying, look at what we've done and how we have how it has gone for us. Because until we get to that tie game, it's hard to move forward. So I'm really hoping that we're getting there. I understand that the Levinson report was done, and I've looked at it and I've read it, and it was very thorough and good. But that isn't going to influence me. I mean, it's hard to relate when it isn't your school. So I've really spent the last month trying to focus on, by reading the Levinson report and reading all of these articles that you did when you formed your district and ours, to try to learn and try to get to that even point and know that we're, and I just hope, I don't feel like we're all on the same page, and I hope that can happen soon. I really do. I keep thinking it all the time. But I do enjoy being a couple points ahead of Mount Abe at all times. So, but that's how I look at it, because that's what I can relate to. So those are just my thoughts on that. I think we're getting there. Maybe what was a 6-point game is now a 2-point game. But I really do think it's important for MAUSD to look at and even ask. I'm not going to have the answer because I wasn't on it, but how it went when we repurposed Addison. I think it's good to, I don't know if, I go back and look at board minutes from that time and read. And so it's just healthy stuff to do to learn more if you want to learn more. All right, we're going to move on unless anyone else has anything else to say. Okay. Next on the agenda is the preliminary approval of transportation of students, assignment of staff, collective bargaining agreements, contracts, curriculum, disposal of real estate, forming entities, cease to exist, board of directors during transition, votes on budget and other public questions, preference to operate as a supervisory district, and community involvement.
Thanks, Martha. Yeah, what I would say is that you had really thoughtful discussion about all of these articles at the last meeting. And I feel your urgency to get to the question of how to deal with school closure as an optional article. And I also very much believe that it would be helpful for you to have further hearty discussion about board structure and representation and voice on for governing a new entity, which I suspect will be as important as school closure. And note that when we saw discussions around Ripton and considerations about how board representation might offset some of the concerns about school closure. I don't want to suggest any position one way or another, as it really is an issue that I'm here to support you with resolving. So in the spirit of wanting to invite you to have some discussion about board composition, because I need direction in order to know what to draft for you. Wonder if the discussion last time and noting that the minor changes you requested in the articles, like adding the words after the first year, if it's sufficient for you to grant preliminary approval for all the articles, or if you'd like to take them one by one, or I would suggest you table and go on to a discussion of board representation, because it will be important for upcoming conversations, as well as your conversations about school closure.
Thank you, Tracy. Kevin has his hand up.
I'd like to make a motion that we give preliminary approval to all the items in item 6 as amended.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
We have a second. Who seconded that? Keith. We have a motion on the floor for preliminary approval of the articles that with amendments that we had discussed. Is there any discussion? Mary.
Can we give approval without having those actual dates plugged in? Like we can just add those later. That's okay?
It's just preliminary approval.
Okay, cool.
Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed?
Oppose.
Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Dave abstains. Okay, the motion carries. Okay, what time is it? 7:30. Okay, I think maybe now we're going to move on to the considerations for board composition. We need to provide some direction for the draft article. I hope everyone either has it up or read it when you got the agenda. So we could go into some discussion and we'll let you talk.
Just to help refresh your memory, I would suggest if you're able to open the last link on the resources section of the agenda, which is the School Board Membership Proportionality 1/2022 document by Beth St. James of the Legislative Council. This is the resource that was the basis for the rewrite of Chapter 11, and in the new statute that is currently being revised or redrafted, the language really clearly articulates these three models as you see them described here, and the specific procedures and considerations for each of the models. So thought that would be the best place to focus to ensure that you were whatever you propose for articles of agreement aligns with what we anticipate in the law. And just to summarize, I would suggest looking at the second and fifth bullet in each section.
Excuse me, Tracy, if I could interrupt for just a second. I just clicked on it myself and it says that it's no longer available. Is that what other people are experiencing?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. So I will describe the three options for you, and so you can kind of refresh your thinking. The first is the proportional by town model, and that is where the Articles of Agreement set out a specific number of board seats for each town within the Union School District based on the census. And if necessary, confidence with proportionality, votes can be weighted. Okay. The second model is the at-large model, where no seats are apportioned to particular towns and everybody votes on all seats. Okay, so those are the two extremes, proportional, and we operate as one community and anybody can come from anywhere and anybody can vote on every seat. And then the third option is the modified at-large model, where seats are apportioned to individual towns, but everybody can vote on every seat. So everybody has a say on who represents them from each town that is assigned a seat on the board. But there's an assurance that each community has a voice in some form on the board. Does that make sense? And in the meantime, while I'm listening, I'll try and find a better link. See if I downloaded it to my drive.
I know on last month, the last meeting we had, it was there. Or the link worked. Dave has his hand up. Dave.
Thank you. So, as you may have read in the news, apportionment in our state legislature every 10 years is a really big deal. And trying to have each community represented in a viable way in the state legislature. Of course, before 1965, each town did have a representative in the legislature. If you can imagine that, 251 House members. Lincoln had one and Burlington had one. The Supreme Court, of course, modified that and required proportional representation according to population. I do think that as a representative in the legislature, thinking about the district I served was 4 towns, and my responsibility to that district was part of my responsibility to the entire state. So I would come down in favor of each town having a representative, or some combination of 2 towns possibly, like is done in the state legislature.
Kevin.
Of course, the way that the Mount A district currently is set up, and I think maybe Virginia's as well, is proportional by town, and it's rounded off to some minimum plus a population, and it's just kind of rounded off, and there's no weighting to it or anything like that. And it maybe it's as simple as familiarity, but I think a continuation of that structure certainly makes sense from my point of view.
Keith?
I just want to agree with Kevin. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Erica?
I just had a clarifying question because I was trying to write and listen at the same time. So that hybrid model is where the towns are represented proportionally, but the board members are elected by everyone in the district. Am I understanding that correctly? So like when I would vote on the school board, I would get to vote for all 10 towns, school board members.
That's correct, Erica, but it doesn't necessarily have to be proportionate. You could say we want 1 person from each town, for example, or it could be proportionate or roughly proportionate.
Thank you.
Mary Kate?
I moved as I was hitting the unmute button. I just want to clarify, we could also do some sort of hybrid, is that correct? We could have some at-large seats and some proportional seats?
That is in place in other districts in the state. The statute, the way it describes the modified at-large model is less flexible than that. I'm willing to check with the AOE if that's something that you would like.
I'm not saying the modified at-large, just some at-large and some proportional. I've seen that in some places, and you know, and I think of it, right, there's some, you know, if you go back to what Dave was talking about in terms of representation, right? We have some people who represent us in the House that represent a smaller group. And then we have some people who represent us in the Senate and they represent the whole county. So that's sort of what I was thinking.
I'm willing.
Oh, whoops, sorry. Nope. I'll let you speak, Tracy.
I was just going to say, I'm willing to draft it. I just want to check with the AOE, and it's going to be confusing. Well, we'll have to do a good faith effort until whatever is in the law is finalized. I know that that structure is out there. I just read the law as creating 3 buckets. And it seems a little less flexible as I read the current draft.
Mary?
So we couldn't have like one representative from each town and then however many leftover seats are at large. I worry with the proportionality with having to go back and either redetermine how many seats everyone gets every 10 years. It seems like a lot of work. Also, my town currently is missing a school board member. So like, and I think some of the smaller towns, it might be hard to get even one member. So if our structure is rigid, the more rigid it is, it just seems the trickier it's going to be to implement.
Sarah?
Yeah, I actually agree. With Mary, I like the flexibility and the options. I think that sometimes you're just really trying to get people that care and are invested, and hearing where they're from might not make a difference, and just having a bunch of seats at the table. And then if there is a lot of interest, I kind of like the idea of a mixed hybrid and also even length of service. I think we look at our select boards and some of them are 2 years and some are 3 years within the same select board. And I think that creates a little vibrancy and a little potential for change, and also the option that some people don't have the same endurance for this work. And it's nice to know that it kind of wraps up. So I even throw that aspect to it. I get turnover, but I also think having a few options about timing is something to consider.
Mary, you still have Dustin. I'll go with Dustin next, then back to you, Mary.
I'm looking at the explanations of the different models, and I like proportionate by town. I think that's important, but I'm also thinking about just the total number of seats. Is there a model where it's proportionate by town, but instead of, so say you have one town that has 6 times the population of another town, instead of that town getting 6 seats and the smaller town getting 1 seat, you maybe have 3 seats, but each of the members holding those 3 seats kind of gets 2 votes, and the smaller town that's 1/6 the size has 1 vote. So instead, is that, I know it would make things very confusing anytime you're putting something to a vote, but is that a possibility to keep the board size smaller rather than having lots and lots of seats for bigger towns?
That would be weighted voting, Dustin.
Oh, okay. All right. I somehow missed that. Sorry.
Kevin? You're muted.
Oh, thank you. I started out saying this is going to be a bunch of paranoia, but after making a comment previously about it being the district's business about closure, and not to stir that up again, but in this situation, I think it's important for towns to, as I had said, to have the responsibility maybe to represent proportionately. I'm concerned that if it's at large or proportional hybrid with certain component at large or totally at large, you can have movement take over the board and things could get really unwielding and lose the perspective of individual towns. So once again, I put the pitch in for proportional and round it out, make it simple. You know, if you've got a small town and to get one vote or whatever the minimum is, and somebody else gets 4, so be it. You know, but I think it's an opportunity for towns to really come to the table and not have to be subjected to some sort of ad hoc movement or whatever the case may be that might threaten a town if it's caught off guard.
Thank you, Kevin. Carol?
Yeah, I have to agree, especially in the very beginning of the merger process. I think it's really important that each town have a proportional representation so that their voice is heard. Maybe further into the merger process, it may not be as important as the sense of community grows across districts. And at that point, maybe more of a hybrid approach would be beneficial. I agree with Kevin that at large is probably not a great approach, just because, as he said, a town or a movement could take over the board and make more changes than the rest of the towns would like. But particularly as we approach putting this together, I think it's really important that every town has a voice, and that we move toward the proportional design.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Comments? Was anyone able to find the link or get a link to work? No, I think I did, but I can share it.
I got it last week. I got it last week, but I have it and I can scan it and send it to you all, just not in this moment.
It might be the wrong one, but I can send it in chat. Maybe.
Could you also talk about your preferred board size? Understanding that the maximum board size is 18, and the smaller you get, the harder it is to achieve proportionality without weighted voting. So your preference is in that direction.
Sarah.
One, I just did want to say I appreciate this conversation because it has made me think of many things that I wouldn't have thought of if we hadn't had it. So thanks. And if I throw my 2 cents into the board, I think a really large board is challenging. So I get the concept of why you would need that for proportionality, but I'm not in favor of weighted voting, but I would be in favor of a medium-sized board. I don't know what Virgin's might be, as Northwest might be 11, 13, 12. Yeah.
13.
13.
Okay. As is our board. So in some ways that might be a good starting point to like say, should it be larger or should it be different? Or is that like number seems to work relatively well? And Tracy's nodding her head like it doesn't work well with the numbers.
Well, it's
Also,
yours
the
to
other
decide.
thing, the elephant
Yeah.
of the room, the other elephant is like, there's one less town potentially. So potentially 2. So I don't know how we set this up with like how many varieties.
If you structured, say, a 15-member board, and Lincoln does not join, they would be apportioned 1 seat in the 15, then it would be a 14-member board if it passed, and they did not join. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And how many do you give for Starksboro on that? How many members? Or could you just run the breakdown?
Sure.
Tracy?
For a 15-member board, I assigned 1 board member per 1,200 citizens, with the highest fraction above, or, the highest fraction left getting that last seat. And that would have Addison having 1 seat, Bristol having 3, Ferrisburg having 2, Lincoln having 1, Moncton 2, New Haven 1, Panton 1, Starksboro 1, Virgins 2, Waltham 1. And that should total 15. Yes.
Thank you.
Any thoughts on those numbers? Kevin has some thoughts.
I'm sort of thinking 13, 15. I think 15 may be the sweet spot. 18 is certainly doable, but to round up that many cats is going to be problematic, I think, over the long term, and I guess the thing about, so if we decide that we want a 15-member board and we start out with Lincoln as the example, being considered with that 15-member board, and it doesn't come to pass that way, could we make it a 15-member board that would drive a reapportionment or something, as opposed to dropping it? I think it's got to be, I guess my point is, I think it's traditionally you always have an odd number board. So I think it would be, we should strive not to have an even number board if for instance, Lincoln dropped out.
I have a question.
Sure.
Could you keep all of your weighting for the towns proportional like that, and then have just one at-large seat to make it the odd number, or and that person can come wherever in the district they want to come from? It doesn't matter. I would also like, to Sarah's point or somebody else's point, it's getting harder and harder and harder to fill any board seats and any volunteer in these positions anywhere. I would love for there to be maybe some discussion of, if a town can't fill a seat, then an at-large person could fill it. I don't know. I would hate to see seats be empty.
The first thing I'd clarify is that you can amend the articles of agreement by a vote of the electorate. So if you started with a 15-member board and ended up with a 14-member board and really want something different, there is a process for changing that. I would just need to get some advice and information for you about the notion of having multiple, if this, then that, but if this, then the other thing. And whether it's possible to say, if Lincoln votes to join somebody who ran for a different seat no longer has access to a seat. Does that make sense? So I just need to get some advice for you if you wanted to try and do that.
I have a question that may be totally obvious and I don't know the answer to. If Lincoln were to leave, do those taxpayers no longer pay for their high school kids? Or I'm thinking there's still, is there no more representation, or is there no more payments to the district or for everybody?
A district has to either operate a school to serve its students or pay tuition. And a withdrawing district that doesn't have a high school would need to figure that out. I'm not aware of a union high school structure or a secondary structure in your region that they could conveniently join, but there might be.
But they wouldn't be paying school taxes to MAUSD if they were to leave.
They have, if they left and chose not to operate their own high school, they could designate a high school and pay tuition to the designated high school. I believe they could designate multiple high schools, up to 3. Maybe that's the limit is in elementary schools. They could also just simply offer secondary school choice, and the parent chooses.
Thank you. Dave?
So to your governance question, either way, they would not have a vote or a member on this school board or any school board. They pay strictly, pay a tuition, one way or another, pay a tuition amount that Lincoln taxpayers would support to have their students attend private, public, religious, whatever school, depending on what the rules are at the time and what choices Lincoln take. But they don't get a seat on any governance board.
You're absolutely correct, Dave.
Any other thoughts or how we want to proceed with this? It did, we are looking for some language, in some direction to draft the article.
I'd like to have Tracy find out whether we can do options like if Lincoln or if Starksboro in terms of the seat, and then whether we can do some sort of mix between proportional and at large.
Erica, you want to add to that?
I'm just curious. I don't feel like we've really addressed the question of whether the proportional means that you only vote for people in your town, or if we had agreed that there would be proportional representation, but everybody in the district would vote for all the members of the board. I guess I kind of feel like the second one is better, that, each town gets representation, but everyone from the district is voting for everyone on the board. But I'm not, 100% convinced of that position. That's just kind of my initial gut feeling.
Anyone else? Tracy, are you good with gathering that information and coming back with it for the next meeting?
Can I ask a couple clarifying questions and kind of get a stronger sense of the read of the group? I'm hearing not necessarily, I'm hearing people feeling like in order to balance proportional representation with effective board size, something in the neighborhood of 15 is where you're thinking. Can you give me a thumbs up if that's kind of what you're thinking right now, not holding you in stone? Okay. And I'm hearing that nobody's particularly interested in weighted voting. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that proportional representation assigned by town proportionally is your preference. There's still some thinking going on around how someone gets elected, and there's questions about that you'd like me to explore about kind of a variation if Lincoln or another district withdraws and doesn't join, and also that mix of proportional and at large, like one person assigned to each town with some at-large seats as well. Okay. Did I miss anything? Does anybody have something that I missed in that summary?
So I would like to say, I think that within that at-large portion, that we should factor in some of the census proportionality so that if there is an open seat, it would be filled by a person from the prior district, the group of towns that used to be Mount Abe or used to be Virgins. I feel like people would be more comfortable with that idea.
Mhm.
Anyone else on this? Okay, I think that's good information, and I need to take this down and find the agenda. Okay. Okay, communication key points. Anyone have any communication? Is that your hand up, Kevin? Yes, thank you.
I'm wondering, we didn't touch it last time and we started a conversation this time, and we still have a blank slate where it says school closure or some nonsensical thing in the articles, and I don't know if we're ready. I'm suggesting maybe we're not ready for key communication points yet.
You want to keep talking about what we were talking about earlier today? We do have some time if everyone wants to.
My point is, I don't think that's resolved.
No.
I would just suggest, I totally support whatever you decide, that because it's not on the agenda and the agenda wasn't amended at the beginning of the meeting, that any action you take be really soft and you explicitly revisit the discussion at the next meeting as an agenda item. And I'd be happy to help you with that.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to take any action on anything because of that. Mary Kate?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Kevin, we had contemplated when the chairs and Tracy met with us that would be a larger discussion for the next meeting.
Okay, I'm not going to cry because the meeting gets out early.
Well, we're not done yet.
Could I ask another quick question? A soft one that I'll have you revisit. In terms of dates, would you like me to draft for a November 2022 and vote and a July 1, 2023? Is that right? Operational date? Yes. I will draft that for you for next time. Thank you.
Okay, so we're sort of informally tabling the conversation that we had earlier. So not really ending it, just tabling it for the next meeting where we'll discuss it again. So we're going to move on to the communication key points of this meeting. Erica?
I'm happy to start with that, but I also do have just a question from the minutes from last week. I did ask that we revisit the idea of soliciting more public input from, for example, teachers, students, other particularly community members in Addison Northwest, because we have gotten a disproportionate amount of public input from people in MAUSD. And I was just wondering, I wanted to know if that was going to be on a future agenda.
It is. I think from Mary Kate and I discussing, we really want to try to get the preliminary approval of these articles done so we can start exploring, do the school tours and get the input from the teachers and make changes to some of to the amendments as we learn more.
Okay,
is
so the
that fair to
idea,
say?
the idea that you're approaching it with is like to make the preliminary articles first and then have that as something that they can give us feedback on?
Yes, that is but that's my perception. It might not be everybody else's.
It's helpful for me to hear that because I wasn't really thinking of it.
Oh yeah, no, community input is pretty important in this.
Okay, thank you. So I was just going to say, for our communication key points, we discussed the future format of our meetings, and we agreed to move to a hybrid.
Thank you. Rebecca. You're muted.
Thank you. I had a question. It's not about the communication key points. Agenda item 6, I guess I missed that. Did we not, it says preliminary approval and all these things. We're not going to discuss those tonight. Or did we approve those? I guess I missed some of that, like approval of curriculum, contracts, disposal of real estate. I know we approve section 7. I don't know what it was, but I didn't see all of those. So I guess did I miss something?
You did.
Okay. Thanks. Okay.
Well, whatever. I guess it was brought up. It was there was a motion made to vote on it. A second was had. There was time for discussion and it was voted.
Right. Okay, I guess I didn't see.
As we had discussed last week or the last time that we met, the changes that we had talked about.
So that was I thought that was Article 6 that was brought up, or was 7?
It was agenda item 6.
Right.
And article, I'm having computer problems.
There's a whole bunch of articles and they're all outlined there.
Okay, so articles, I thought it was just Article 7. Okay, I guess I missed it. I was looking at it and okay.
That's okay. It is attached to the agenda on the bottom.
No, and I was looking at it. Okay, I guess then I just missed it. Okay.
But there will be, this is just a preliminary approval. Sure. And there is time to go back. I suggest what I've been doing is I've been highlighting as we preliminary approval, some things I have questions on, and I highly suggest.
No, and I was reading through it as we are going through it, so I guess I missed it. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Any other communication key points? We definitely had some. Rebecca?
I just forgot to take my hand down.
Oh. Kevin?
We had a discussion about the composition of the future board and have some questions that Tracy's going to look into for us.
Thank you. Dave?
Thank you. It was briefly mentioned, but I think it's important to note that the MAUSD board had a much broader understanding of what this committee was going to attempt to accomplish, and that is collaboration other than a unified district, which we've spent little or no time on.
Anything else? And I guess I'd like to add that we had a healthy discussion about the article on school closure under the, when discussing the communications. Mary Kate?
I would just say we gave preliminary approval to those articles outlined in section 6 of the agenda. And in the key points, just rather than me reading them all, just take them from there. Yep, thanks.
Anything else? Okay, moving on. Public comment. Is there anyone that is on here in the public that would like to speak? Yes, we have a hand up. Rob Backlund.
All right, can you guys hear me now?
We can.
I apologize. I'm Rob Backlund from Lincoln. I'm a representative on the MAUSD board, and just a disclaimer, I do not speak on behalf of the board, I speak for myself. Thank you all for being here and continuing on this work, this heavy lift. The couple thoughts I have are more question oriented. The first being, and I know you guys think about this all the time, but you know what, I would love to hear more from this committee holistically what you all think is best for our students, and to really have a sort of a vision, not just articles of agreement, but a vision. Is that vision one high school? Is it one middle school? Is it two high schools, two middle schools? Is it busing kids an hour and a half one way to get to a school? Is it closure of small schools in some of our smaller towns? Is it one central office? Is it two central offices? I think this committee has been working diligently on articles of agreement, but really needs to share a vision. And the reason why I say that, because I think what you need to chew on a little bit more at the end of the day is what will pass with the voters. What might make the most sense on paper, what make the most sense in our heads, realistically, is not necessarily how people will vote. People will vote with emotion, not rationality. And so I think you really need to have a come to the voter booth moment, and knowing that we have two separate districts here that are trying to merge, two different districts. And within each district are 5 different towns, okay? And you have to get the majority of folks in each district to approve this. And to get to that lift, you no longer have those built-in tax incentives that really turn the tide, I think, in both districts the first time around. Okay, that's a carrot that no longer exists. And I think the carrot you need to sell is the vision of what is going to be best for our students. Because at the end of the day, I think we both all know that probably what is best for our students is also best for our taxpayers. You no longer have those built-in tax incentives. And so I really ask that you grapple with that question. What is actually going to pass? Not what might look best on paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Anybody else have any public comment? Okay, having no further public comment, adjournment is the next. Would anyone like to adjourn?
So moved.
Troy, with a motion?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
You got a second from Keith. We have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? We'll see you at the next meeting. What is the next meeting? I gotta write this down. We have the date. We're back on a regular schedule now. April 3rd. In April 4th in Virginia.
I have April 4th in Virginia.
April 4th in Virgins. Okay, I will see you April 4th in Virgins.